questions and experiences for Ashley and for us, and we will make sure we get those answered for you by the end of the episode. Contribute, help us out, share this conversation. The more people that can hear it, the better. So let's get to it. Melissa, tell us who we've got today.
We have our wonderful repeat guest, Ashley Mowrey. She's a mindset coach and educator for dancers located in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She holds a BA in psychology from the University of Arkansas as a certified professional coach through Coach Training World, a trained facilitator in Tara Moore's Playing Big Leadership Program for Women, and a specialist for Doctors for Dancers, which is also a great partner of Apollos. Ashley trained as a competitive dancer out of Dallas, Texas, before teaching and eventually directing a company and dance studio in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She sees clients in person and via Skype and Zoom all over the country, as well as travels, sometimes digitally. Digital travel is the new thing. It's the new way to go.
Yes.
To studios for customized group workshops. Ashley also has recently been featured on Dance Studio Amplified podcast. That's episode 14. Check it out. Dance Boss University Mastermind as a guest presenter, and in episode 58 of the Dance Boss podcast. Why couldn't I get that out?
Shout out Aaron
Boss
Pride.
podcast.
Shout out, Aaron Pompa.
Aaron Pompa. Yes.
Aaron,
Make the name
love
change.
You. Yes.
She is also a regular blogger for Apollo Performance The Muse, and she's a regular on this show with us. Thank you so much, Ashley. We are so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. And I think, so I moved my phone. So hi, Instagram. This angle is, not my preferred. You were up there a minute ago, but something is going on with my phone. So we're going to roll with it. And so if you see me, keep touching my screen, it's because it's going dark, but we're just going to roll with it.
Bria and I, technical difficulties, that has been our thing. That's our learning curve. And we think we finally got it. So we're right there with you. So we've had you here before, and I'm sure many of the guests, many of the viewers who have watched know your background and know what you do. You've been on both sides of the coin when it comes to dance. You've experienced your own challenges as a competitive dancer. You're an educator, but now you coach dancers, educators, and sometimes their families. So we're seeing an increased awareness everywhere, but especially in the dance world, on mental health in general, just, specifically as it relates to dance. Why is mental health such an important thing?
Yeah, so I believe that mental health is just as important as physical health. And, I think we're seeing in our dancers that we still have a long ways to go in both of those arenas. And I was, this was really highlighted in a new survey, or a new study, I should say, by Minding the Gap, Minding the Gap is an organization who advocates and educates for mental health in dancers. And they just did a study in November 2020 with the dancers from Point Park University. Mm-hmm. And they found that dance students showed poor mental health when compared with normative data of the same age group, that 48% of dancers showed high levels of anxiety.
Wow.
That 44% of dancers showed low self-esteem, and that 55% of dancers had high social physique anxiety, which is the anxiety we feel when people are looking at our bodies. Wow. And there's some more stats too on there. You can check it out on their page. But I think that just is a really important highlight of where we are right now, and that we still have a lot of work to do in the dance community to provide help and resources for dancers and their mental health.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. That's like almost half in every one of those sample sizes, almost half. And I think it's very interesting that the physique anxiety,
social physique anxiety
for a group of people that looking at you is the actual foundational of what you do. It's kind of like you think things like that become easier and cause less anxiety as you do it more, but it seems that it could cause more.
But if you think about it, we're always looking in a mirror. We're forced to look in a mirror constantly. We have people commenting on various things from what we're wearing on the regular, what we're wearing, how we look in it, what our lines look like, what our muscles look like. I mean, they're analyzing every part of your body, right? As part of the ritual and the routine of being a dancer. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm moving my phone a little bit.
That's
see if
all
I
right.
can
Move
get
it
to a
around.
little bit
It's all
easier.
right.
Go for it.
I'm like,
We keep
what
it
do we
light
do?
and loose around here.
That's
We just
right.
like to
I'm
go
like,
with
how
the
can I
flow.
touch it really quickly while I'm
Yeah.
talking?
For those of you, we've got people joining us on Instagram, Facebook, and here on Zoom. I'm Bree Zabrowski with my co-host Melissa McDaniel. We're chatting today with mental health coach Ashley Mowrey, and we're talking about what is the impact of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset on our dancers. And we hear these terms a lot, talking about mental health a lot. But Ashley, I want to kick off the first segment by just basic. What does having a fixed mindset mean? And can you give one example of a way that we as dancers would exhibit a fixed mindset?
Yep, and I'm moving you again. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. Move
It's
away.
not my best technology day. So a fixed mindset. Oh, and I want to note too that the concepts of fixed mindset and growth mindset were found by a researcher and psychologist named Carol Dweck. And so everything that I'm speaking about today is her work.
Thank you.
And so in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, is a really great resource. Or so for any educators wanting to learn more about growth mindset, or have resources for yourself and your dancers.
What is the book?
To start. Mindset. I think I have it right here.
Look at you. You should get a royalty.
Right.
What is it? I can't tell me the whole title.
Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. And I lost you on Instagram. This is going to happen.
No,
No,
you're still there.
Am I good? Okay. I caught it in time. Okay. So this is Carol Dweck's work. And so a fixed mindset is the belief that our intelligence, our abilities, our talents, and our personal traits are static. We either have them or we don't. And whatever amount that we do have, it's really nearly impossible to change from the perspective of a fixed mindset. And so because of this, people with a fixed mindset feel like they constantly have to prove themselves or avoid situations in which their inadequacies could possibly be exposed.
Okay.
So a few things to look for to see fixed mindset is people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges. They tend to get defensive or give up easily when faced with obstacles. They feel threatened by the success of others, and they ignore useful feedback and criticism.
Ashley, is it generally like, I mean, would a good way to summarize it, would it be to say you're afraid of failure, so you just don't try? Yeah. Like a fixed mindset, you're just basically afraid to fail. So you just don't do it.
Yes, exactly. And that's a component of it. So the belief with the fixed mindset is that like, I am either talented or I'm not talented. And if I'm not talented at that, I'm not going to do that because I am scared of failing in front of people.
Okay.
Yeah. So an example would be like, let's say a dancer is at convention and they're really struggling with the combo. A dancer with a fixed mindset might be saying something to themselves like, I can't get this combo. And if I go in my group, I'm just going to humiliate myself.
Got it. Okay. Understood. Now, conversely, what is a growth mindset, which is, I think, the goal, right? The goal is where we want to promote a growth mindset, but we're going to talk about why that is on this conversation. But what is a growth mindset, and give some examples of what that looks like?
Yeah. So a growth mindset, on the other hand, is the belief that our abilities and traits can be developed and improved. And so because of this, it increases the desire and the passion to learn. So growth mindset, people really want to learn, and they embrace challenges. They persist in the face of setbacks and obstacles. They learn from feedback and criticism. And instead of feeling threatened by others' success, they instead feel inspired and find lessons in the success of others and how to do it.
So it's not really the idea of attaining perfection or being, well, that idea doesn't exist anyway, but really the concept of like being really great at something. It's not about that. It's more about what can I take away from this?
Yep, exactly.
Outside of the tangible, basically.
Yes, exactly. And so, I'll speak to this some later, but because of that, so because with growth mindset, the focus is on learning and growing, they tend to focus more on the process. So
Okay.
instead of focusing on the result and the outcome, they are focusing on the process of the learning and growing that got them to the result. And
Understood.
therefore, they are able to handle those setbacks and those challenges better and more effectively because they know they're learning, they know they're growing. So for example, going back to our dancer at convention, a dancer with a growth mindset who is struggling with a combination might say something to themselves like, this combo is really challenging, but I can keep practicing and learn from my mistakes every time I do it.
Okay.
Got it. So yeah, I can see how that would be challenging, especially when you're an educator who's navigating a room with all these, maybe perhaps a group that is more heavily leaning towards fixed mindset versus some that lean more towards growth and everything in between. You know, you almost have to have your own growth mindset as an educator to control
Right.
that whole setting, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh yeah,
later
we're
in
going to
the
talk about that.
Yeah.
The educator's mindset is incredibly important and impacts, as is the parents too.
Right. Thank you.
So I'm about to go off on a tangent, clearly. It's my first tangent this season, I think, though. So I think I'm due for a tangent.
Yeah.
So, you know, just Ashley, and hearing what you're saying, you know, it's growth mindset is more about the process and, you know, not necessarily the result. And you're thinking about that. How does that relate to the idea that we need to set goals and we need to push toward those goals, like in the goal or end result? So we're always talking about these are our goals and we need to set them. But if we're trying to keep a growth mindset and not necessarily focus on the result, is that a contradiction to the idea of setting goals, or how
Great
does that work
question.
together?
That is a really good question. And so it's not, so a growth mindset is not that the result doesn't matter, or that there's not, that we don't have goals and set them. We do with a growth mindset. We set goals, we work towards them. We figure out a process that is going to get us there. The difference is the definition of success. So with a growth mindset, the definition of success is not necessarily the result. It's the journey to the result.
Okay.
But it's still okay. It's still okay to set goals because it's creating that process of achieving something and going through the process of achieving. But the focus is not on the end result of the goal. It's on what did you do to attain it.
Right.
Yeah. And along the way, it is a focus. I think I lost John. Let's see.
Nope, you got us. You've got the timing down now. You're ready.
Okay. So I lost my train of thought, but with a growth mindset, you know, when I say focus on the process, Carol Dweck identifies 3 components to really focus on, and that is effort, new strategies, trying new strategies, new approaches, and getting help and input from others. Right. So when I talk about process, that is, you know, 3 components of our process that we can focus on. But it is not like, it's okay to obviously still set goals and to want those goals. And also, if you do achieve those goals, to be really happy about that. But also to reflect on the process that got you there. Not that I won because I'm a talented dancer, a naturally talented dancer, but I won because of these X, Y, and Z got me here. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah. So part of the success is navigating the process well, not just getting to the end result.
This really reminds me of the conversation we had with Lauren Ritchie. Was it last week? When did we talk to Lauren? Last week.
Yes,
we
I think that was before the break.
I don't know what day it is. I don't know. But when we talked to Lauren Ritchie, it was last Friday, about the resiliency and how obviously the connection of having a growth mindset really promotes resiliency within all people, but especially our younger students and our kids. So it's just so important to recognize what comes from having a growth mindset as more than just in that moment. It really promotes lifelong attributes that you want your child to have, right? So
exactly. So I'm gonna go to this next question because I think it kind of ties in. We often talk in dance, oh, this is what we've always done, and this has been the curriculum, and this is the playbook, and this is what we did last year, and this is what works. So what changes do educators need to make the curriculum foster a growth mindset? Because, you know, our curriculum is, did they get plies, chaînes, jetés, did they boom, 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 boom? Can they execute these things? Did they get the choreography? Did they put, there's a very, and if they didn't, then it's kind of like, oh, we missed the mark. So what can we do from a curriculum and teaching standpoint to foster a growth mindset in our students?
Yeah, I love this question, and I love this conversation. And before we can do anything with the curriculum, we've got to look at the teacher's mindset and how they communicate with their dancers, because that is going to have a significant impact on their dancers. And so, there are lots of growth mindset activities that teachers can do in the classroom. And there's in the resources that I sent that will be linked, there's a lot of different exercises, but those are going to be fruitless if the teacher is not teaching from a growth mindset. And so a fixed mindset in a teacher could sound like labeling their dancers and only focusing on talent. And we can talk a little bit about labeling, because it's a big component of mindset. And so labeling, we often think as teachers and parents that positive labels are going to boost our child's progress and confidence, right? So, oh, you're such a natural. Oh, you got that so quickly. You're so smart, right? And while these are well-intentioned, the research shows that while these might give the child a small and short amount of confidence, so for a short amount of time, in the long run, they actually have an adverse effect, and what happens is that they push the child into a fixed mindset, because a label is okay. So like, let's say you say, oh, you're such a natural. That child is going to internalize, oh, if I don't learn something quickly, I'm no longer a natural. Oh, if I don't win, I was told when I won that I'm such a natural performer. And if I don't win, I'm not going to be a natural performer anymore. So labels, and it's so human to use labels. Like I have to watch myself, every day. My daughter's 4, and I have to like catch myself every day when she loves dance, and she dances all around her house. And anytime she does something with like straight knees and stretched feet, I have to catch myself to not be like, oh, she's such a natural. And I have to be like, no, Ashley, like, don't label her. Don't go
guilty
down that path, right?
5-year-old daughter, yes, guilty.
Yes, it is, and it's really hard. And it's what we've grown up with. It's what we've experienced as dancers, and what we've done for so long. And so, no shame in it. It's just one of those things to start being aware of, and start being aware of like, oh wow, I just labeled that person. And also, your child is going, and your dancer is going to pick up on when you label yourself and when you label others too. So not just them, but they're going to hear when you do it to other people too. Another component that we might hear in teachers with a fixed mindset is when mistakes are not allowed. So when there is a environment where mistakes are punished, or they are humiliated when they make mistakes. Another thing that I see often is if feedback towards the teacher is viewed as threatening. That's a sign of a fixed mindset. And also when the results of the team are a reflection of the teacher's abilities and talents. When that view is the view of the teacher, that can be an indication of a fixed mindset. So I think, the first thing that we need to do as educators is to look at our own mindset. And I sent a link that you all will get with a mindset assessment that was created by Carol Dweck and her team. And so you can use that as a starting point, and knowing that like we all have some fixed mindset in us. Like, most of us, we tend to veer one direction more than the other, but we all have some fixed. And so that's okay. And it's just becoming aware of it, and then, doing what we can to shift into a growth mindset.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I really think that this is going to be a huge industry shift if we're going to do it, because everything you just named about a fixed mindset is pretty much how the industry operates. Like, the success of the kids is a reflection of, are you a good teacher? Are you a good studio? Are you like those? So that's built in. the idea of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, and if you think about like the way the culture of dance is set up, there's technique, right? So there's like a right way to do something, and then there's a wrong way to do something, and there's really not a lot of room in there of any gray area unless you're in more of like a modern type situation where you can blur those lines a little bit, but for the most part that is the right way to do it, and that is the wrong way to do it. And so being able to focus, especially for for a child who doesn't have the same maturity level or understanding or awareness of how the world works yet, and being able to separate, all of these things, that's going to be really hard to focus on maintaining this growth mindset when, as a culture and as an industry and as an activity, we're like, it's this or it's that. Like there's no, you can't be in the middle.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And with that, I think too, like with technique, it's okay that there's a right and a wrong, but it's not. I think what we do a lot as educators is predict who is going to get it right and wrong.
Yeah.
And who is going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And we put our attention on the kids who we predict have the talent and have the natural ability, and we put the emphasis on the ability. That's the other thing with the technique. Okay, so if there is a right and a wrong, Carol Dweck talks a ton about praise, and that praising ability is actually it pushes again kids into a fixed mindset, and so instead we can praise effort, their hard work or the strategies that they're using, right? So if they're not getting a skill, how can they problem solve and like try new ways to practice that skill? Or the other component that I talked about earlier, getting help and input from others. And so those are the things that we want to praise. So that's another way that we can do that with this industry that is very, technique is black and white. What are we praising? And being aware that we are not praising that ability, that we're praising effort, strategies, and getting help.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That helped me understand.
Okay. Yeah.
A great deal. Yeah. Yeah. So praise, because you're like, well, what do you? You say you're supposed to praise. It's like, well, what are we supposed to be doing here? But that makes a lot of sense. And then you also have to build in the opportunities to have them strategize and to have them put in different levels of effort and to have them ask for help. Like you can't just breeze through class with these things that you need to check off the list, but you need to leave room for that. So let's talk about parents. We need the parents help in this, because we can't foster this great growth mindset and then they go home and they're like, hello. These are the things you got. What can parents do and what adjustments can they make to their thinking? Because obviously we have to make an adjustment to our thinking. And how can they support their children in developing this mindset?
Yeah, so I think it's really similar to what I said for teachers. I think the first step is assessing where their mindset is, where they fall, if it's more towards a fix or a growth. Then looking at how they're labeling people. Are they labeling themselves, their children, other people? How are they praising? What are they praising for? And then I also think as parents, you can ask yourself, where's your focus? Are you focusing on them winning, or are you focusing on the growth and the learning that is going to get them to their achievements?
So, okay, I'm going to lay it out, right? Like, I know the logical side of me knows that there is a reason. There's a good reason for going to competitions and conventions, and it teaches the kids so many things in the, not even just in that moment, but also leading up to it and the process. And they're working towards something. They're being a team. They're learning all of these life skills, right? But like, we all get caught up as educators and parents and children about, I mean, you go there, you want to do well, right? Like you want to put your best foot forward. And it feels good to win. It feels good to go up there and go, we left it all on the stage. That was the best we've ever done it. Like, so is that wrong to celebrate those moments, to celebrate the win, to celebrate, because that's really what I'm hearing, is that like we're sending mixed messages by doing that, but it's so natural and organic to want to celebrate those things. Or are you just like, okay, we won, but I'm more proud of the fact that you guys work together as a team, that your effort, like you all work together, you put your best foot forward, you were all on top of your energy was great, like recognize that win, but don't make that the be all end all. Is that what you're saying? Because it can be
Yes.
really muddy. That can be really muddy.
Yes. And I think, I think this, it can be really hard because this requires us to be very nuanced in our approaches, which I think sometimes, our brains like it to be this or this, and this
that's what it is. That's what dance is. It is
right.
that way,
Yeah. And so for this, and Carol Dweck, again, this copy of her book that I have is the newer version. And she goes into, I think this is something that a lot of parents and educators struggled with, is like, wait, are you saying I can't praise when they achieve something? And she says, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. We can celebrate those wins, celebrate those victories. The important part is to tie it back in to what got them
the
there.
process. Okay.
Yes. And if they didn't work to get there,
is that okay?
It's not, as she says, that it's not like don't praise it as much. Like it's not like if they did not work to get there. I mean, and I think, we are caring individuals. So you don't want to tell the child like, oh, you didn't work to get here. So, but I think you can, it's not, as much of a victory as if, they worked really hard and they did all of these different things to get there. So when there is a big win, yes, celebrate it and tie it back into, wow, I am so excited for this win. Let's reflect on how we got here and what got us here and what we did together and individually to get us to this moment.
So what happens when you have, we're going to get to what the kids can do to advocate for themselves in this regard in just a second, but I'm popping another question in the middle of all of this. What happens when you've got parents that are operating with a growth mindset and an educator who's not, or you have an educator that's operating in a growth mindset and a parent that's not? Often those two worlds don't mesh up. And so what happens when you're at odds there in terms of your approach? And at the studio you're doing all of these wonderful things, and then it's all negated as soon as they walk out the front door by the parent, and vice versa.
Or even worse, like the parent calls you and goes, why are you talking all this? Why are you praising them for this journey? She didn't do XYZ.
Right. Well, yes. And okay, so a couple things on that. And Carol Dweck does note that, like, if they did put in a lot of effort and did horribly at the competition, don't praise that effort. And we want to praise effective effort.
Wow. Okay.
So again, that doesn't mean go in and say, oh, that was terrible. Say, hey, this happened today. It looks like we have a lot of work to do. And so it looks like, let's try these strategies when we get to the studio. Or, oh, can you think of anything that, we can, what should our next step be to get to this?
And bringing them into the solution and into how to get through this process. Okay.
Yep. So I wanted to make a note of that. And then, okay, when the parents and the teachers are not in alignment with the messaging, I think, that's always going to come up. And I think one thing that I really work with clients a lot is understanding that we throughout our life are going to constantly be in situations where we cannot control the people around us, and we can only control ourselves. So I think even in that situation, we can continue to try and work on our own growth mindset. The thing I would say for teachers, if you're a studio and you're having a lot of parents that have fixed mindsets, bring me in. and have me do a workshop.
I love
we
it.
can't do it ourselves, that's for sure.
I
love
do.
it.
I do workshops with studios virtually all the time on growth mindset. I have one coming up in beginning of February with the parents. And so, yeah, and so it's that's always know that that's an option. That if you have a group of parents, and I tailor those, I have a game plan, but then I also tailor them to the needs of like, what is happening with the parent group and what they need. And then if it's on the flip side, if it's the parents who have the growth mindset, not the teachers, I think there's a couple options. I think you can be real with yourself and say, like, are we a fit for this studio? Like, is this where we want to be? And I think, this is where, this might be controversial, but this is where we, I think as an industry, we need to start holding ourselves more accountable. Is like, if we know that these competitive studios are doing things that are harming the mental health and well-being of our dancers, but we're staying because they win. What is that doing?
It's absolutely contradictory to what we're talking about. So that's where it gets really hard.
But it happens
where we
way more frequently than the other way around.
I mean, we're all guilty of it. Like it's where we place our value, right? Like when right now, my kids are in that position where they're just starting out in their activities, and training is really important to me, and I'm really trying to focus on the training they're getting and not the result. Like I continue to mold my language when I talk to my husband and my kids of like, I want you to learn this really well. You can decide if you love it or not, if you continue or not. But if you're going to learn it, you're going to learn it well, and you're going to learn it the right way. And that's where I try to focus. I have no idea if that's right or not, but that is a big, big, big thing with me. Big thing.
Yeah. And I think that sounds great in a great perspective. And I think, as parents, we can just look, and I'm not saying, go into your studio today and say, hey, we're out, you have a fixed mindset. This can be a conversation. And you can, bring it up with like, hey, I've been learning about this. I wonder, if it would be helpful for the dancers, and start that conversation. And then you just have to ask yourself, like, do the studio values align with our family's values? And you have to make
basically, but short answer, can you find success if the two are not aligned? If the parents and the teachers are not on the same page with promoting that mindset, is there any possibility to find success in promoting a growth mindset in any regard if you're not on the same page? Yes or no?
It's going to be hard.
Okay.
If you are at a highly competitive studio where it is a very fixed mindset, and that is the messaging, because these dancers are at their studios all day, every day. And if that is the message they're hearing, it's going to be hard. And they are, and you can notice in your dancer, just look at your dancer and see, like, are they struggling with setbacks? Are they avoiding challenges? Are they, and then see if that is a common theme within the culture of the studio. And if dancers are being labeled, and what they're being praised for. And so, but I think it'd be hard.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I figured you were going to say that, but just thought I would clear that up. If you're just joining, I'm Bree with Paula here with my co-host and friend Melissa McDaniel, chatting with our friend Ashley Mowrey today, who is a mental health coach for dancers. And we're talking today about what is the impact of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset on our dancers. And we just learned all about the differences between the two and what parents and educators can do to foster a growth mindset, which is really what the goal is here. But what can the individual students do for themselves as consistently and routinely as possible to keep themselves? What are some tools they can use, some resources they can draw on to operate in a growth mindset? And what age can they really understand and be responsible for this in themselves?
Yeah. So kids as young as pre-K can start to
Wow.
understand
Wow. I didn't expect that.
they can understand the very simple terms of our brain can change. And that's what growth mindset is it's the science behind it is the neuroplasticity of our brain, that our brain can continue to develop and change until the day that we die.
Right.
But we have to use it, and we have to let it face challenges, and we have to, use it to make it go stronger and smarter. And so kids as young as that age can start to learn the concept of, did you know that your brain can change and that mistakes can help your brain grow?
Okay.
And so that messaging can start really young. And then from there, you can start to integrate more of these, nuanced concepts. There's a ton of resources online. Like even if you just search for growth and fixed mindset or growth mindset activities for kids, there's a lot of exercises online that you can use. But I think one thing is to encourage your child to reflect on their mistakes and on their current mindset. So like, how are they talking to themselves? If you start hearing them talk to themselves about like, I can't do this, I'm not going to do that. Or, oh, I'm never going to be as good as her because I can't pick it up as quickly. Those are signals. And so you can help your child reflect on like, hey, that sounds like a fixed mindset. Let's talk about some things that you could do to shift into a growth mindset. I also think as a parent and educator, helping your dancers embrace mistakes and risks and challenges, right? Carol Dweck uses a mantra for kids, mistakes make my brain grow.
Okay.
So, really understanding what our brain, that mistakes do help our brain grow, and they help it get smarter and stronger. And so if we are learning from those mistakes, and so that can be, you can use that with the kids to help them stay on track with their growth mindset.
I do have, it's a personal question really, because I see my son teeter sometimes on the precipice of a fixed mindset. He struggles with that a little bit. So when you have a child, he's 8 and they show those signs of a fixed mindset, can you right that ship? Can you turn it around? Is it deprogrammable? I guess if that's even a word.
That's a great question.
Can you reprogram them to be a growth mindset if they struggle with that?
Yes. Until late adulthood, until throughout our entire lives, we can reprogram our brain. And that's again, so I sent, one of the links that I sent is a YouTube video, and it's great for kids to show what happens to our brain, like the neuroplasticity of our brain, and that it can change and get stronger and smarter. And so that is a really great visual. But yes, that's the cool thing about growth mindset is our brains can change. Like that's the whole concept, is that like we can change, and we can change our mindset about this. And yes, it does take work and it takes practice. But the first step is bringing awareness to that and recognizing that. And also really like giving ourselves some grace about it. Like this is not anything to be shameful about. As I said earlier, we all have some fixed mindset in us. And that's okay. And we can reflect upon it and, practice a growth mindset. But yeah, it's definitely not something that is, irreversible.
Thank you. Thanks.
And speaking of that, not, being irreversible, or the long-term toll that it takes, we all know it's common, and we've seen it as educators and, as peer dancers, starting to get burnt out in their teens, quitting before the senior year, lots of anxiety, being overwhelmed. And that's super frustrating for us who have invested time and energy into the child, for the parent who has invested time, energy, and money into the child, and for the child who's invested a lot of time and energy as well into learning the craft. So can you tell us how having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset might impact that trajectory? Does growth mindset mean that that's less likely to happen versus a fixed mindset?
Yeah, it does. So the research shows that people with a fixed mindset are more likely to plateau earlier
Okay.
and quit earlier because they struggle with those setbacks. They don't, they struggle with the setbacks and the challenges. They avoid the challenges. They give up easier. And then whereas the people with a growth mindset, so a few things that I want to highlight. They they're able to continue longer, because they embrace those challenges and they typically reach higher levels of success than people with fixed mindsets. Another thing that's really interesting is that people with a growth mindset also enjoy and love what they do more because they see the value in the growing and the learning that's getting them to the achievement. They're not just a fixed mindset is achieving to prove that they have enough of that. Whereas a growth mindset is achieving because they love learning and growing.
Okay.
So they're going to have more satisfaction and enjoyment throughout their journey too.
Thank you for that, Ashley. This has all been super enlightening.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's stuff you can apply. I mean, whether
Anywhere.
I have young kids that aren't in all of this yet, but I'm like taking all these mental notes. And I know too, like we haven't even touched on professional dancers. That's probably like another conversation, but how, learning these things early, how that would help them and their resiliency throughout their career and the things you deal with when you go through a college program or a professional program and knowing how to cope with that growth mindset. It sounds like it just helps you cope better overall in every situation when you're coming from that place. So I hope this has been helpful for those educators and parents out there who are, maybe struggling with this and not sure quite how to approach it or what to do. I hope this helps. We're going to give you some resources right now because we're going to go to our homework section. We always like to give homework. But Ashley, kick it off. What is one thing that you want to assign to all of our viewers and listeners, one action they can take between now and next week to make progress in attaining a growth mindset?
So as I mentioned earlier, there is a mindset assessment that you can take online. And so the homework is to take that mindset assessment and see where you fall and, go in with an open mind and an open heart and don't be hard on yourself, and take that and then reflect upon that and see, where are your opportunities to grow and to shift your mindset.
Okay. Which link is that you sent? Is that the YouTube or
it's the, I would have to, I don't have them in front of me.
Mindset.
We have the APA.org.
Is it the network? It's something network.
I got it.
Oh,
I got the,
okay.
I'm putting it in the chat right now since it's relevant. We're talking about
it.
We also want to encourage you all. We say this every week and we're going to keep saying it. We encourage you to take the STEPS Initiative course on the Apollo website. It's apolloperformance.com. We're going to pop that into the chats on Facebook and Instagram, but it's free. And every single course it has been curated by experts in every single field. The modules tackle everything from racism to gender equity, psychology, nutrition, dance, medicine, and science, sex abuse and prevention. YPAD generously donated that module. So we have all of these amazing things that are going to give you education, evidence-based resources to hopefully kind of continue digging deeper on your own, but things that you can apply to your life and like we said, make improvements in these areas right now. And that's the STEPS 2020 Initiative course. We popped that link in on Facebook and we'll get that here in the chat and on Instagram. We also want to encourage you to check out our friends at YPAD, ypad.org, Youth Protection Advocates in Dance. They're doing great work to keep kids happy, healthy, safe in dance. They have a teacher certification. It should be a prerequisite at this point to be a dance educator. I think it's that important. Obviously no program, has it all covered, but this is the most comprehensive program available to educators at this point. And it's really going to cover everything. And I think if you're working with children, because there is no certification to be a dance educator, this is a great place to start. So our friends at YPAD are offering 25% off the certification. You can ask for it for a Christmas present or a holiday gift this year, a birthday gift.
Yeah.
It's the best gift you can give yourself. Get 25% off using code APOLLA25. That's all capitals, APOLLA 25. And we're going to put the link in here so you can get registered for that course. And then Ashley also has generously provided some resources for you today. We're going to pop those in the chat as well. We have the mindset assessment that we already mentioned. We're going to pop that book in that she referenced by Dr. Carol Dweck, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. So you can hopefully do some light reading over the holiday break. And we have 3 other great articles that Ashley included for you to study up on a growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Yeah, Ash.
And I wanted to mention the one with APA. I forgot to mention this when we were talking about praise, and you were saying, so what do we praise on? The APA link is an article that Carol Dweck wrote for the APA on praise. And okay, so what do we praise on? What are the do's and don'ts? And it's a great resource to read through and to put into practice.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you
All
for
of
the
those are
resources.
going in the
That's
chat right now.
Yeah. And lastly, Ashley, while Melissa finishes up that, tell us, how can people work with you? I know you do coaching for individuals, you do coaching for studios and groups and organizations, and they can work with you online. You make it so accessible and easy for them to get a hold of you. So how can people work with you, and where can they sign up?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching with dancers. Typically, the youngest I'll go is 8, but 8 and up, and then and we can work. All of my clients that I see are on Zoom, and so they're all online. So wherever
That's
you are,
awesome.
I can work with you. And then I do workshops for studios and companies and organizations, whether it is your dancers, your staff and faculty, or your parents. I can do presentations and workshops for all of them. I can travel to you, or we can do it virtually on Zoom. And then I also am on faculty for Embody Dance Convention, where we are, I'm teaching mindset skills to all the different age groups at on the convention stage. And so that's really exciting too. So we're doing our spring tour in Connecticut, Orlando, and Santa Clara. So please join us there. We would love to see you, and you can get some mindset skills while you dance and train.
And how can they follow you and reach you and book a session with you?
Thank you. So my email is ashley@ashleymowrey.com. My website is ashleymowrey.com. You can find out more about coaching and working with me. And then my Instagram handle is @ashley.mowrey.mindset, and you can find resources there. I have been in the middle of a rebrand, and so stay tuned for the new year. I will be coming out with lots of new fun stuff and content and resources for dancers.
Wonderful. And we put all that information to contact Ashley in the chats. So you all can hopefully incorporate her into the 21-22 season. You will not regret it. It's a great gift to give your dancer, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. So Ash, thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. This was so wonderful.
Thank you for being with us again, Ashley. We have enjoyed this. It has been extremely enlightening for us, and I hope for you as well, everyone who is viewing. If you are viewing this and you're like, this is something that other people need, share. It is on TPDC_on_IG on IGTV. It is also on Apollo Performance on Facebook. You can share it directly from there. So please share this information with other people. It's so important. And those videos stay up there. So you can do that anytime, review it again at any time, come back to it at any time. We'd love for more people to hear and use the information that we provide. Next week, on next Friday, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be talking to Nicole Perry, the founder of Momentum Stage, and we're going to talk about how we teach our students to set boundaries around consent and touch. So that is a topic right now that is much needed with everything that's happening in our industry, and we need to empower our children, because we as parents and educators are not always going to be in the room. We're not always going to have the eyes that are on them. So we are working to empower them to say, this is my boundary, and holding that even when they're in a situation where there's an authority figure that may or may not be doing what needs to be done. So that is very important. I know that's scary to empower your 8-year-old, to have to do something against that. But
well, and I have so many questions on this, so I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I can't wait to learn. I'm
Right.
really excited about that.
Yeah. So please catch us then. Thank you, Bree, for being here this week. We had a little restful break last week, but now we're back in. We got some great shows coming up into the winter break. So please join us again. Thank you, Ashley, once again. And thank you, everyone on Instagram, on Zoom, on Facebook who joined us. And we hope until next week, when we see you for our next show, that you enjoy your journey beyond the steps. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you, Ashley.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you all.